warroomsports.com. Get that mobile app.
What's up, football fans out there, and welcome to another edition of Field Vision. The NFL draft is tomorrow, and me and my man Jimmy from War Room Sports, we're here in a round table, but we got a special guest with us. We got none other than draft expert Brandon Pemberton, a.k.a. Sports Trapping Brand, a.k.a. the Maestro of the Playbook, and he's going to chill in the War Room with us for a little while just to give us a mock-up of the first round and talk about some prospects. Brand, what's up with you, man?
I'm chilling, man. Just working, man. You know, been working at this for a while. It's coming down to crunch time. Still wrapping some things up, but you know, I'm definitely looking forward, you know, to Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, and seeing how things play out, and then taking a mental break after that before I, you know, what I mean, before I switch it over to NBA draft mode.
No doubt. Jimmy, you excited about the draft?
Yeah, man. What's up, everybody? This is Jimmy, a.k.a. the Victor Newman of Sports Talk Radio. What's up to all the lovely ladies out there? Yo, and rest in peace to my man Marv.
Yeah, that's right. All right, so let's get right into this, man. The first pick has been debated back and forth since the college season ended. Where are you going with this pick? Who do you think the Texans? What do you think the Texans are going to do with this pick, man?
I mean, it's only one pick. He's been the pick after his sophomore year. He was the pick coming out of high school, and that pick is Jadeveon Clowney. Some people feel as though for some odd reason, which I have no idea, that he doesn't fit this defense. He fits any defense. To sit and tell me that Khalil Mack is a better fit or a better player than him is absurd. I mean, it's one case in point and one example of a player who was 6'6", 260 pounds, that played defensive end coming out of college, that played, you know, 14, 15 years in this league and is the all-time playoff leader in sacks, that made the transition to the 3-4 outside linebacker, and that's Willie McGinnis. So, you know, Clowney is just as good as a prospect as McGinnis was coming out, if not better, athletically. So, in my opinion, you don't trade the pick. You don't take Mack. You don't take a quarterback. You take him.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, because, you know, when the season first ended, you know, everybody, I mean, like you said, Clowney has been that name for a long time, but then you had a few pundits coming in saying, well, it's possible that the Texans can take a quarterback. Do you think the whole thing with Clowney versus a quarterback, is it just that Clowney, like, you can't pass up on him, or is it the lack of quarterback talent in this draft?
I just think he's a better prospect than the quarterbacks.
Right.
I mean, this isn't Clowney versus Luck,
right,
you know, or Clowney versus RG3, or Clowney versus Carson Palmer when Palmer came out. You know, this is Clowney, and I like Bridgewater. You know, I like Bortles. They're the only two quarterbacks I gave a first-round grade on. But in my opinion, Jadeveon Clowney, he's the clear-cut number one player in this draft. You just can't pass up on him.
What are your opinions on all the rumors and things we hear about his off-the-field issues? Now, it doesn't seem like it's going to affect him. Like you said, everybody's saying that he's a once-in-a-lifetime prospect. But what do you think? How he'll translate into the league, and will his off-the-field activity be a distraction?
I mean, honestly, if you look at him off the field compared to Johnny Manziel and a bunch of other prospects, it's really not too many issues. The biggest issue with him is, and in my opinion, it's not an issue, because if you watch the film, honestly, there's this misconception that he doesn't play hard, and it's blasphemy. I mean, you see him chasing down plays from the other side. You see him taking on double teams. I mean, he plays hard.
I see him take on a couple triples.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this year junior year compared to sophomore year, he faced a lot more double teams. They ran away from him a lot more. Tennessee made the mistake of running at him 3 out of the first 4 plays in the game this past year, and he made 3 tackles for losses. That's the reason why they stayed away from the guy, because they couldn't. I mean, he took a guy, Tiny Richardson, who's a second-round pick at left tackle, and made him look like a complete turnstile. I mean, this whole notion, like Merrill Hodge talking about he's an awful football player, is BS.
Right.
You know what I mean? Mike Mayock now all of a sudden has Khalil Mack as the #1 player in the draft. It's all BS. It's all BS. I mean, I like Khalil Mack. Khalil Mack's a good football player. He's not on that level with Clowney athletically. You know what I mean? Khalil Mack played against Ohio State, and that's when I really thought that he was a legit prospect. Prior to that, I watched Khalil Mack play against Central Michigan. He played against Central Michigan last year against Eric Fisher and did nothing. Nothing at all. Not a damn thing.
Well, so you do know, but you know Eric Fisher also was that dude, though. You know what I mean?
But that's my whole thing. Clowney played against these dudes. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I got you. No, I'm with you.
You know what I mean? And Clowney been doing this thing from freshman year until a junior. So I like Khalil Mack, but don't tell me that, you know, all of a sudden he's the #1 prospect or he's a better fit. I don't buy it.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Well, right after the Houston Texans, on the clock will be the St. Louis Rams with one of their 2 first-round picks. I think they're picking at 2 and at number 13. I've heard some rumblings that St. Louis might be interested in Johnny Manziel, but at the same time, they're telling people that they're not interested in trading Sam Bradford. I don't really think, you know, you can have that both ways. So do you think that they're just sending Johnny Manziel smoke screens so somebody else could, you know, try to trade up and take him or something? Or who do you think they're going to take?
I mean, if they're trying to, you know, make this, you know, ploy that they're interested in Manziel at 2, they obviously think they can trade out of 2 and move down a couple spots and still get a player that they want. Now, in my opinion, Manziel shouldn't go in the top 20 in this draft.
Let alone the top 2.
Yeah, so, I mean, it's teams that, you know, supposedly like Manziel. I mean, at 4, Cleveland, for whatever god-awful reason, might take him at 4. I don't know why they would, but that's just me. But if I'm the Rams, and you look at the Rams and you look at the issues on their team, and if you look at the division they play in with all the great defenses, you know, they traded for Jake Long last year. They got him, and he was injured. He coming off an injury. They still got Roger Saffold. You can bump Saffold into guard, and you can decide to take a tackle. You can either go Greg Robinson or you can go Jake Matthews. If you want to go upside, you go with Greg Robinson. You know, he's very raw right now, but I can't remember seeing a more powerful, explosive, you know, offensive line. I mean, he just buries guys. Right. I mean, he's one of the best run blocking tackles I've seen. You know, I mean, just a run blocking offensive lineman since Larry Allen. This is what kind of power you talking about. Now, he's very raw as a pass protector because they didn't pass much, you know, at Auburn like they did at Texas A&M, comparing him to Matthews. Now, if you want to be, you know, safe and you want a guy that you know can come in and start from day one and you know, he possibly play for you for 10 years, then you take Matthews. Me, I like Robinson and I like his upside. I would take Robinson there too.
Okay. Let me ask you a quick question about the Rams. Looking back now, you know, everybody knows they made that trade with the Redskins, right?
Mm-hmm.
Who do you think got the best of that deal at this point? Or is it's still too early to tell because we don't know what RG3 is going to do? Like, what do you think about that deal at this point?
I mean, looking at it after RG3's first year prior to him getting injured, you know what I mean, you like that, they flim-flammed the Rams. You know, right now, I mean, I think it's still
up in the air?
It's still up in the air. You know what I mean? And I still think once RG3 gets back and he gets his legs under him and he gets back to the mechanics that he had coming out of college and he had prior to being hurt, then you're going to see the accurate RG3 that we seen, you know, prior to the injury. But I still think it's sort of up in the air. I mean, the Rams still are making picks, and we still got to see how those players turn out.
Right.
Got you.
All right, so let's go to Jacksonville Jaguars with the number 3 pick. You know, this is a team that we all know they have needs. Where do you think they're going to go?
I mean, they have a lot of needs, and I think the biggest need on their roster right now is the quarterback position. They don't have a quarterback who can play. You know, they traded Blaine Gabbert. He was a mistake as a first-round pick. Never bought into that. And they had Chad Henne, and Chad Henne sucks. in my opinion, at 3, I take the best quarterbacks available, and I think he's one of the top 10 to 15 players in this draft. And I take Teddy Bridgewater at 3.
Okay.
Wow.
So you would go. I mean, all right, but this is just who you would take. Do you think they're going to take him? I mean, we've heard all the pundits recently, and how Teddy Bridgewater's stock is falling because of a bad pro day. I've heard you on the radio and watched some of your stuff. I know, that you don't really feel what everybody's saying. Like you throw a couple of bad passes in shorts and now everybody's down on you.
Mm-hmm.
I know you would take them at 3, but do you think they're going to go that way? What do you think they're going to do?
I mean, honestly, I could see it's other players on the board. You got Sammy Watkins. If Khalil Mack was there, you got Khalil Mack.
Right.
Those two are higher rated players on my board than Teddy Bridgewater, but it all depends if they're sold on him as a quarterback. You know what I mean? If they feel as though he's the guy that can come in and be their guy, then I can see them taking him. If not, Justin Blackmon might not play at all this year,
right.
Which leaves him without a wide receiver. I can definitely. Sammy Watkins is a player. He's a top 5 player in this draft. He's a player that's going to be hard to pass up on. Also, you got to look at the fact in the second round, when the picks come around in the second round at 36 or wherever they pick at in the second round, do they like a quarterback there? Jimmy Garoppolo,
Right.
Zach Mettenberger, Aaron Murray. You know what I mean? Some people think A.J. McCarron's a second-round pick, not me. But, it's some quarterbacks. It's some quarterbacks, in a second, third round, that they might like. So they might say in the first round, no, we're not going to skip over one of these top 5 players. We're going to take one of them and then come back in the second round and get a quarterback that we think, can possibly start, not in year 1 or maybe halfway. Because Chad Henne's going to screw up, 6, 7 games in, and the rookie quarterback's probably going to end up having to play. So,
Right.
it'd be hard. And like if I was in there, it probably would be hard for me to pass up on Watkins. And I do like Bridgewater, but it'd be hard for me to pass up on Watkins or Khalil Mack, or even if Greg Robinson was there at that time.
Yeah, no doubt though. This segment is definitely about your board and your opinion. Just because you put Bridgewater there, I just wanted to get your opinion on what you think they would do. But well, so we'll see. But 4th is Cleveland Browns, and you mentioned them earlier, possibly being interested in a Johnny Manziel. What do you think? Where's Cleveland going to go?
I would say Sammy Watkins. Last year, Brian Hoyer, before he got injured, was playing decent. He opened my eyes, opened a lot of people's eyes before he had got injured on that Thursday night game versus Buffalo. I think, with him coming back healthy, you give him an opportunity to see what he can do. You take Sammy Watkins, you pair him up with Josh Gordon and Jordan Cameron at tight end, and you added Ben Tate. Now you had some offensive weapons that you didn't have before. Brian Hoyer showed flashes of playing well last year. You give him an opportunity, and then at 26, you got another opportunity possibly to take a quarterback that might be sitting there that you might like.
Yeah.
Or you can wait to the second round and take a quarterback.
Yeah, if the rumors, are true, and say a Teddy Bridgewater falls down to 26, then they could really come up in the first round of this draft.
Exactly.
Oakland Raiders at 5. I've seen a lot of people link Oakland with Johnny Football. What are your thoughts?
Oakland done been through this song and dance with taking players just because of flash, just because they're fast, and this and that. Khalil Mack's on the board. I know you brought in a bunch of older players, to come in and play. Lamar Woodley's, the Tucks. You need an impact player. You picking at 5, you take Khalil Mack. You run the 4-3 under. You put him at the line of scrimmage. The same type position that Von Miller plays for Denver, and you go ahead and let him rock out.
Yo, let me just say something to you guys real quick. Because I always hope the Raiders fail at everything they do. But I was looking at a statistic earlier, right?
Bronco gang.
Yeah, you already know. Yo, I'm looking at like, the Raiders last several draft picks. And listen to this real quick. Now, I'm gonna give you the guy the Raiders picked and who went the very next player picked, right? So when the Raiders picked Robert Gallery, the very next player was Larry Fitzgerald. The next year, they picked Fabian Washington. The very next player, Aaron Rodgers. They picked Michael Huff. The very next player, Dante Whitner. They picked Jamarcus Russell. The very next player, Calvin Johnson. Yo, and last year they picked DJ Hayden. The very next player, Sheldon Richardson. So Raiders, all I'm saying is continue to do what you do. That's all.
Wow, that's
crazy. Yeah, it's just like the luck of the draw right there. Like some of them, like Robert Gallery, I don't know if I could fault them. If you think you got a
dog, Fitz went right after.
No, but if you think you got
they could have had Fitz and Aaron Rodgers, man.
You think you got an offensive lineman prospect like that? I think you got to take it.
Yeah, I mean, because a lot of people missed on Gallery. A lot of people thought he was going to be that guy, and they kind of found out that he couldn't play tackle in the NFL at all, and he had to bump inside the guard.
Yeah, that's kind of like missing in the NBA draft. You take a big man that you think is going to be the truth, and
they could have had Aaron Rodgers and Fitzgerald. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, like taking Gallery was like in the 90s in the NBA when like Purvis Ellison and Felton Spencer went in the top 10. You end up missing.
No doubt. So Oakland. What did we say? What are you gonna miss? What are they gonna miss on this year?
I mean, I said Khalil Mack, and
okay,
you know what I mean.
Okay.
Hopefully, for their sake and his sake, it's not a miss. I think he can play. I think he has a good skill set. He's one of them players that wasn't highly recruited coming out of Florida, and there's a lot of kids in Florida that can play that end up not going to the top schools. But he was an undersized guy coming out of high school, and he developed late. You know what I mean? And those are the guys that usually, they might be undersized, but they're athletic. They're good athletes, but they end up going to a mid-major or a lower-level school because they don't have D1 size. And, in his 4 years on campus, you see he went from being like 6'1", 210 pounds to being 6'2", 250. And, bam, that's what you got. You got a guy who single-handedly destroyed Ohio State on opening weekend, even though they lost. I mean, he just wrecked everything they tried to do that weekend, and that's when I was like, okay, this guy's legit.
Mm-hmm.
No doubt. So Atlanta Falcons at 6. I know they need some help up front offensively. You think they're going to go offensive line, or you think they're going to go somewhere else?
I think they're going to go offensive line, and I definitely would go offensive line. Last year, they had major issues protecting Matt Ryan, quarterback you just paid over $100 million to. So Jake Matthews is on the board. You can plug Jake Matthews in. He played right tackle for 3 years, played left tackle for 1. He can play either one technically sound. He can play all 5 positions on the line, but he's definitely a guy who can come in day one and, plug him in at right or left tackle and be very productive.
Okay. Tampa Bay Buccaneers at number 7. I've had a few discussions with this, and some people seem to think that they might go quarterback. Man, I know they just got Josh McCown, and they still have the young guy that got the experience.
Glennon.
Glennon. Where do you think they're gonna go? You think do you think they're satisfied with those 2 quarterbacks, or do you think they're gonna?
I mean, Lovie Smith obviously has a rapport with Josh McCown. The minute he got the job, not soon thereafter, he went and picked up McCown. At 7, I wouldn't go quarterback because there's players on the board that fit what Lovie Smith does defensively that I think are top 10 to 15 players. You got Gerald McCoy. In my opinion, you could pair Gerald McCoy with Aaron Donald from Pitt. C.J. Mosley is a player who is scheme diverse, played in the 3-4 inside linebacker at Bama. But C.J. Mosley also has the skills to play in the 4-3 as a will or play the middle linebacker. You can bump Levante David back to the will linebacker in that Tampa 2. Those 2 guys that defensively they can go after. Another guy who they might like as far as wide receivers, Mike Evans. Now, me personally, I don't think Mike Evans in my opinion, is a top 10 player, top 15 player. I know a lot of people like him. There's a lot of flaws in his game that he
I
needs
agree.
to fix. But in my opinion, I'm a guy that likes to build from the lines out, and I would take Aaron Donald. Aaron Donald, 6'1", he's 285. He's the closest thing to John Randall I've seen since John Randall. Another guy who was undersized, who came in this league and played with tremendous leverage, was strong. Even though he was a shorter guy, he had longer arms for his size. And Aaron Donald is a guy who constantly makes plays on the other side of the ball. He's a guy who, if you didn't watch him play, you just said, oh, he's 6'1", 285. How is he going to hold up versus double teams up front? He plays with tremendous leverage, strong upper body, strong lower base. He can take on the double teams. He can split them. And him and Gerald McCoy, playing together, both of them are guys that's going to get to the quarterback. That'd be hard for me to pass up. I would take Aaron Donald.
Okay. Now another team who definitely had some quarterback issues last season was the Minnesota Vikings. Now they're picking at number 8. Where do you see them going?
And this is a spot, and you look at the offensive coordinator in Norv Turner and what he's been able to do with quarterbacks, with Troy Aikman, Phillip Rivers. They need a quarterback, and this is a spot where I would take Blake Bortles. I think Blake Bortles is, it's only 2 quarterbacks for the first round grade, and he's the second one. Big time potential, big body, very underrated athleticism. Still raw. He just scraping, his potential as a football player. And you get him with a guy who has a pedigree of teaching quarterbacks and working well with quarterbacks. And he's not going to have to play early. They brought back Matt Castle, obviously, for a reason. Play Castle early, let Bortles learn. He's been working with his mechanics with Carson Palmer's brother Jordan. Year 2, he's going to be ready to go. If not, towards the end of year 1, he's a guy who I think has a tremendous upside, and I like a lot. I like his ability to extend plays, but not run just to run, but run to extend plays and make plays with his arm. A lot of people like to compare him to Ben Roethlisberger. I think Ben was a much better prospect coming out, more polished prospect, because Bortles only been a 2-year starter at quarterback. Roethlisberger was a starter, I think, from his sophomore year, had 30-something plus starts under his belt. But I think Bortles is the pick for the Vikings.
Okay, and the Buffalo Bills at 9.
The Buffalo Bills at 9, they need help at the offensive line. If they want to go, left tackle, they can bump Cordy Glenn to right and draft a tackle. But they also need E.J. Manuel needs some weapons as far as wide receiver. Mm-hmm. Stevie Johnson is a possession receiver. Robert Woods is a possession receiver. The tight end is a possession receiver. I would go with Mike Evans right here. Mike Evans is a big play guy. He's a guy who he might not run past you, but his height, weight, leaping ability, and his power combination, and his ability to run after the catch, his ability inside the 20, to go up and get the ball, was something that teams are looking for. If you coach Mike Evans up right, you can end up, and if he accepts the coaching, you can end up with a Pro Bowl player.
All right, now at 10, Detroit. I've heard a lot of rumors surrounding Detroit about wide receivers. So I was thinking maybe you would go Mike Evans there, but rumor has it that they've let Sammy Watkins know that they're really interested in him. So, of course, if they're interested in Sammy Watkins, they're going to have to make a trade in order to do so. So where do you think Detroit's going to go with the number 10 pick?
I mean, they interested in wide receivers. I can understand that. Offense for them isn't really a problem.
Right.
What's been a problem for them for the last 5-6 years has been the defensive backfield. Defensive backfield is brutal. I mean, the corners stink. Louis Delmas was the only safety that could play. And I think, if I'm not sure, he might not be there. I mean, the defensive backfield is garbage. At 10, Justin Gilbert is sitting right there for the taking. The most athletic corner in the draft. 6 feet tall, 34-inch arms, kick returner, punt returner, athletic. He still has some technique stuff to work. He's one of them players that, like Patrick Peterson before Peterson got in the NFL, got away with a lot of stuff technique-wise because he's so athletically gifted.
Well, let me ask you a question, Brandon. Speaking of that, because I doing my reading for the draft, I looked at Bradley Roby as well as Justin Gilbert. How do you compare those two players at that position, and why do you have one rated over the other?
If Bradley Roby would have came out last year, Bradley Roby probably would have been one of the first 2 corners taken. Bradley Roby had trouble in the offseason off the field, came into this year, and just wasn't himself technique-wise. He gambled a lot this year.
Okay.
He did a lot of stuff to hurt him. Now, Bradley Roby is probably slightly not as athletic as Gilbert, but I think he's a better tackler. Right off the bat, I think he's a more physical player. Teams are scared of Bradley Roby because of the off-the-field stuff. And that, he's a first-round talent. Should be a first-round pick. I have him on this mock going in the first round. But is he going to go in the first round? That's going to be another question because teams, they're not willing to risk taking a pick that early on a guy who can possibly get himself in trouble. And during his time at Ohio State, he's gotten in trouble on numerous occasions.
No doubt. All right, we got Tennessee Titans coming in at 11. Where do you see Tennessee going?
Titans lost Teron Werner, due to free agency. He went to Tampa Bay to play with Lovie Smith. They have, needs a quarterback, but I don't think it's a quarterback on the board right here at the time. For them, they need, help at outside linebacker. I know some people like Anthony Barr. I wouldn't take Anthony Barr this early. In my opinion, you address the cornerback position, and Kyle Fuller is the guy who I think will be a great fit for them.
Okay, and then at 12, we got the New York Giants, who had a down year. We know how inconsistent the Giants are. Coming off a down year, where do you see the G-men go?
The Giants' offensive line was bad last year, just straight brutal. And you got a tackle that's still on the board right now, a left tackle on Taylor Lewan from University of Michigan, who can come right in and play left tackle, 6'7", very athletic, had one of the top 5 10-yard splits coming out of the box in the 40-yard dash at the combine, did the shuttle drills and stuff very well. And that stuff that you've seen on the combine, like with the field drills, translate to what you see on film with him on the field. For a guy that big, 6'7", 310 pounds, very nimble, very agile, long arms, can get out in the screen game, get to the second level, on the run game. I think Taylor Lewan would be a good fit for them because they definitely need to address the offensive line. And we all know if you can't block, you can't play offense in this league. You won't win games. And that was, Eli Manning threw a lot of interceptions last year, but the offensive line was very bad as well.
Yeah,
that's true.
All right, so where does St. Louis go with their second pick of the first round?
St. Louis, they drafted Stedman Bailey. They drafted Tavon Austin last year. But in my opinion, they still need help at wide receiver. They still need some explosive weapons. Tavon Austin, is, a multifaceted type of player. But in my opinion, at 13, a guy like Odell Beckham Jr., 5'11" and a half, 195 pounds, was one of the most pro-ready prospects in this draft, one of the more explosive guys in this draft. He can run kicks, he can run punts, he can play in the slot, he can play outside. The best thing that happened to Odell Beckham Jr. and all those guys on offense was Cam Cameron coming there, and them playing under Cam Cameron because they started running, pro passing game, the route trees, and everything. And he's a guy that's going to be ready from day one to come into the NFL and play, and he can beat you in a medley of ways. He can beat you deep. He can beat you on the short stuff. He's tough enough to go across the middle. You can hand him the ball in the reverse. He can run. He's a very talented player, and the guy got 2 hands the size of catcher's mitts and a vertical leap of almost 40 inches. And for a guy for a guy 5'11", he plays a lot bigger than his height because he's a guy that goes up and snatches the ball out of the air and makes tough contested catches. Like a guy that's 6'3", 6'4". So, if I'm them, Odell Beckham Jr. is there, I take Beckham Jr.
Okay, and at 14, the Chicago Bears. If I'm a GM, I'm thinking about how putrid our run defense was in 2013. So where do you have them going? Do you agree that the run defense needs to be addressed?
I think it needs to be addressed, but looking at the board, and I think defense period, needs to be addressed at all three levels: defensive line, linebackers, and you hope in year 2 that Bostic and Kasim Green gets better. They drafted 2 linebackers last year. The best case scenario for them would be if Aaron Donald was on the board when they drafted that. Aaron Donald would be a perfect fit for them. But, looking at the board the way I have it playing out, I think Ha Clinton Dix at safety would be the best pick for them. They need...
Greatest name in the draft.
No.
Yeah, I mean, crazy name. His whole name is Hashan. But, he's a guy that can play the half. He can play the third. He can play quarters. He can come up. He can play the running. He's a playmaker. He gets his hands on balls, forces fumbles. Is a very smart, instinctive football player. And last year, they didn't force a lot of turnovers like they did in prior years. So at this point in the board, I would take Dix. And then, it's going to be other players because this draft is so deep because of all the underclassmen that entered the draft. You can address the defensive line, in round 2.
Cool. And then we got Pittsburgh Steelers at 15. Shout out to Jim Ricalto, Sports Kings. He's a Pittsburgh Steelers fanatic. He was actually supposed to be on this broadcast with us, but he couldn't make it. Where do you got Pittsburgh going?
Pittsburgh has a lot of needs. They're old at cornerback. They need to replace the wide receivers. At this point, at 15, I think Darqueze Dennard from Michigan State would be a perfect fit for them. He's a physical corner, likes to play press man coverage. He's a hitter. He's a tackler. He's a Steeler type of player. He's a player that Mike Tomlin, I can imagine Mike Tomlin watching this tape and those guys loving him as a cornerback. I think he's a guy that fits right into what they do defensively. I would take Darqueze Dennard.
All right, how about them Cowboys? Cowboys at 16. You think they look to replace DeMarcus Ware, or do they go elsewhere?
I mean, I definitely would be looking to replace DeMarcus Ware. You lost him and you lost Hatcher, your 2 best pass rushers, and Anthony Spencer is coming off a microfracture surgery, and he's a free agent. They haven't decided whether they're going to bring him back. They need big-time help defensively. They run in the Tampa 2 scheme. They need defensive linemen on the inside that penetrate and guys on the outside that can get to the quarterback as well. Now, me personally, I made this pick for them, thinking what they possibly could think. Me personally, I wouldn't take him at this point, but Anthony Barr, defensive end / outside linebacker from UCLA, is a guy who his dad played running back at Notre Dame, Tony Brooks. The Eagles drafted him in the 4th round in '94. He played running back his whole life until 2 years ago. He's only played outside linebacker for 2 years, and he's put up some numbers. But if you just look at the raw numbers, you would think you're drafting Lawrence Taylor. But when you actually look at his tape and actually watch him at the point of attack, see what kind of instincts and stuff that he has, it's not there yet. I mean, there are guys that have played defense their whole lives, and they just have a defensive mentality. What I mean? They're physical at the point of attack. They're nasty. What I mean? That's not him. A lot of his sacks, came off of blown assignments from the offensive line. You rarely see him just take an offensive lineman and just whip his behind. You rarely see him take a tight end and just beat him up and throw him around at the point of attack. What you see is a 6'5", 255-pound athlete out there, that gets lost at times. Now, a team like Dallas or any team that drafts him has to have faith, one, that, he can develop, two, that your defensive line or outside linebacker, your coaches can coach him up, and you possibly can come away with a player. Me, I'm not too high on him.
Okay, cool. So at 17, We got the Baltimore Ravens.
The Ravens need help at the offensive line. They lost Michael Orr to free agency. Eugene Monroe, they did resign. They need a right tackle. Morgan Moses from University of Virginia is a first-round talent in my mind. He's a guy, a 3-year starter at left tackle for the University of Virginia. Held his own against some of the best prospects in this year's draft as far as pass rusher. He's a guy who can come in. You can play him at the right tackle right away. He's going to be fit and ready to come in and play from day one. I like Morgan Moses a lot.
All right. Now we got the Jets on the board at 18. You think they're going to go defensive backfield? That's what I'm thinking, but
I mean, they need help at defensive backfield. I know they added Decker to the mix to go along, with the wide receivers. I'm not too high on their weapons offensively. I think Eric Ebron from North Carolina is the guy that's going to be hard for them to pass up on. Even though they want to address the defensive backfield, Eric Ebron is a guy who's a top 10, 12 talent in this draft. And if he's sitting there, he's a guy that can fill the void in the slot. You can line him up outside. He's one of those 6'4", 250-pound hybrid guys, runs a sub-4, 640 vertical leap. I mean, he can get it done inside, outside, and he's a willing blocker as well. I think I'm about to call him E.J. Manuel. Geno Smith needs some more weapons to help him out if he's going to flourish this year. He made a lot of bad mistakes last year, plenty of bad mistakes with the football, and I wasn't surprised because that's what I seen on his tape, in college. But they also set him and whatever quarterback there up for failure. It wouldn't have mattered if Peyton Manning played there. They didn't have enough talent on the offensive side of the ball. So, Eric Ebron, in my opinion, is a guy that would be very hard for me to pass up.
I'm glad you said that about Geno Smith because I was about to ask both of you guys a question. I was going to ask you who plays quarterback for the Jets this year.
I mean, Michael Vick came out and said that Geno Smith's the quarterback. He's here to support him and help him out.
Well, Mike, these days he's into saying the right things.
Yeah, and of course, Michael Vick is going to go out there and ball and play hard and try to win a job. Geno Smith's he's going to have to lose this job. You know what I mean? Yeah. Because the new general manager, he drafted Geno Smith. That's the guy who he wanted. In my opinion, if it was up to Rex Ryan seen what kind of defense they had last year, and they was an 8-8 team, and they should have been an 11-win team, and they lost a lot of games because Geno Smith made mistakes with the football down the stretch. Now, early this year, if it's the same scenario, if it's 3 games in, and Geno Smith has 7-8 turnovers through those first 3 games, he's gonna have to sit.
Yeah,
that's not saying that Michael Vick is that much better of an option, because obviously the 3 of us know this, and we've been through this conversation here, Twitter, Facebook, and with the NAACP. We done been through this.
No doubt.
I mean, we done been through this. I'm not saying Michael Vick is a better option.
Yeah,
Geno Smith is going to have to blow this.
But that's what's interesting because Michael Vick's name still holds weight. And it's always a mess with the Jets. It seems like, they're more about getting attention than they are like, getting wins as opposed to losses. But I could see this being a big soap opera. If Geno doesn't start out right, it's going to be a big soap opera. They'll have all the attention on them. And meanwhile, they'll be an 8-8 team. It's sort of like they're taking a Cowboys playbook. Let's just keep getting attention and becoming a popular team just for being popular, but not about necessarily winning.
But what I agree with, and both of you guys said it, the key word is, if Geno messes up, he has to lose the job. I don't think they're going to go into the season, even if Mike Vick happens to outplay him in the preseason, I think Geno Smith is going to go into the season with the job. Yeah. He'll have to lose it in the regular season, not in training camp or something like that.
Yeah, I definitely agree.
So at 19, the Miami Dolphins are picking. What do they need?
They need help in the offensive line. I mean, Jonathan Martin isn't there. Incognito isn't there. John Jerry, another one of the guys isn't there. They need help in the offensive line. Zach Martin from Notre Dame is a guy that can play all 3 positions. He can play tackle, he can play guard, he can play center. In my opinion, I would give him a shot at tackle. if he doesn't play well tackle, you can bump him in at guard, and you can play him at guard, and you can possibly, go with a tackle like Jawan James from Tennessee in the second round. But I think Zach Martin brings a lot of value because of his versatility, and he can play, athletic, good blocker, not the biggest guy as far as weight-wise, but he uses his body well, his hands well, and, he's very technically sound. He was taught well at Notre Dame.
Okay. All right, so we're going to go to the 20th pick. This is the Arizona Cardinals. This is actually the last non-playoff team in the first round except for Cleveland, who also has the 26th pick. So, we're getting into, the teams who were the better teams in 2013. Arizona it's kind of a scary team to me, if you're, in the conference rooting for somebody that they have to play against. I think Arizona is a scary team. Where do you think Arizona is going to go with the 20th pick?
Some people feel as though that they might go with a quarterback because, Carson Palmer is up in age. Me personally, at this point on this board, I think, they needed another safety to play besides Tyrann Mathieu last year. And Calvin Pryor is a guy that, with Tyrann Mathieu's ability to play the deep third and his ability to play, the deep halves in the passing game, Calvin Pryor plays in the box. And this would be the perfect opportunity, fit for him to do what he does best.
Calvin Pryor is a hitter.
Yeah. I mean, that's what he likes to do. He likes to play up in the box. He likes to come up and make tackles. He's a hitter. And, I think Calvin Pryor would be a good pick for them to go along with an already vicious, Cardinals defense.
Yeah. Okay, so at 21, we got the Green Bay Packers on the clock.
The Packers need some help in the defensive front. They drafted Dayton Jones last year from UCLA to play the 5 technique. B.J. Raji, they did bring back on a 1-year deal. He, of recent history, hasn't been that great. Rashid Hageman, defensive lineman from Minnesota, is a freak of nature. I mean, he's 6'6", he's 315. I mean, he's just a barbarian. When he's playing with great pad level, and when he wants to be dominant, he's taking 330-pound men and just tossing them around. When he decides that the person in front of him isn't going to block him or stop him from pushing him in the backfield, that's what he does. He has the potential to be a great football player on the defensive line. And the Packers play the 3-4. He can play that 5 technique. He can 2-gap. If a team was a 4-3 team, you could play him at the 1 technique shaded over the center. You can play him at the 3 technique over the guard. And he's a guy that can take on double teams. He can pass rush a little bit. The more he works on this pass rush technique, he can get even better. I think he'd be a perfect fit for the Packers right there at 21.
Okay, and at 22, our hometown Philadelphia Eagles. Fly, Eagles, fly, by the way. Do you think Chip Kelly is going to go where a lot of the fans may want him to go now? Because apparently, from what I've heard the last month, the Eagles just lost Randy Moss. So do you think they're going to go with a speedster, maybe like Brandon Cooks, Oregon State, or something like that to replace Deshaun Jackson? Or do you think they're going to address that defense, which was improving last year but was still terrible at times? Where do you think the Eagles are going to go?
If the Eagles going to tell me that they cut Deshaun, because of money or, because of this notion, and, their motto is, bigger players beat up little players, then if they drafted Brandon Cooks, then they would be telling me that's BS. Mm-hmm. And I think Brandon Cooks is a decent football player, but I've had enough of, these smaller wide receivers, and, when they get down in the red zone, you can't get none of these guys.
Right, exactly.
In my opinion, going into the offseason, the biggest need for the Eagles is on defense. And I think their biggest need is at outside linebacker as far as rushing the passer. The Eagles finished in the bottom 5 in passing yards given up, and they also finished in the bottom 5 as far as sacks, that they got. at 22, right now, I don't think it's a player at outside linebacker, at pass rusher that's worth that pick.
Right.
But I do think there are defensive backs that are worth that pick, and a defensive back that I would be willing to take, and I think has the potential to be a Pro Bowl player is Bradley Roby from Ohio State. I love Bradley Roby. I don't like the off the field stuff, but if he can come in and focus, when Bradley Roby is technically sound, he's as good as anybody, in this draft at playing cornerback. He's a physical guy, 5'11", long arms, 195 pounds. He tackles.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen him guard tight ends. I've seen him go inside. I've seen him play him at safety at times. He's a guy that can be a difference maker. A guy that can cause turnovers, guy that can get his hand on footballs. And he's a guy that, with cornerbacks, when you don't hear the name being called a lot, that means, one or two things. They're either blanketing the receiver, and the receiver has, they're not getting open. And that's, a lot of times outside of the game against Aberdaris, against Wisconsin, Bradley Roby, his name was rarely called in a bad manner this year. I think Bradley Roby is a guy, and I like, Kerry Williams. Bradley Fletcher was, he did a commendable job, but we talking about a guy with Pro Bowl potential, a guy who's much better athletically than the guys that you have at corner. You got Boykin inside. You leave Boykin inside at the slot. He's a perfect fit in there. Had 6-7 interceptions last year. He does his job inside. Now you got to get guys outside who can run, who can play bump and run coverage, and they can run and cover. And Roby is that type of player.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. I don't think the Eagles should be pressed to replace Deshaun Jackson in the first round. I think the defense needs to be addressed first. I just agree. You agree with that, Jimmy?
Yeah, I agree with that. It's funny though. I heard rumors this afternoon about the Eagles getting Johnny Football, which I find hilarious.
Slap the hell out of somebody. All right, so we got the Kansas City Chiefs at 23. We know about the huge playoff meltdown these guys had down there with Andy Reid. Where do you see the Chiefs going in the first round?
The Chiefs lost both of their starting guards, the free agency. They don't have a starting guard on the roster. And you had the best guard in the draft sitting on the board, a very good football player, the only first-round guard in this draft, and that's Xavier Su'a-Filo from UCLA. He's a guy who's scheme diverse. If you want to play a man-blocking scheme, he's strong enough, sturdy enough to take his man and block him one-on-one. If you're his own team, he's athletic enough to combo block and get to the second level to the linebackers. He's good in the screen game. I think he would be a perfect fit. And we know Andy Reid from his past here. He's in love with, drafting offensive linemen that can play outside of Danny Watkins. But, Su'a-Filo ain't, a 25-year-old fireman. You know what I mean? He's a 21-year-old Polynesian Samoan football with a nasty attitude, man. And I love this guy. I think he'd be a perfect fit.
All right, cool, yeah. And like you said, Andy is smart enough to take what he needs, and he has a history of drafting offensive linemen. We all know Andy likes some toys as well, but he'll probably be a little upset that he got a goal lineman his first 2 years. But, they had a nice turnaround, and, if you can shore up the things that you need up front, you can stay competitive. At 24, we got the Cincinnati Bengals.
The Bengals need to replace Michael Johnson. I think Coney Ealy from the University of Missouri would be a perfect fit for that type of scheme. They like their linemen big and physical. If you look at them across the board, when they had Michael Johnson, Pecco, Atkins, and then Carlos Dunlap, there wasn't a player on that defensive line that was under 280 pounds across the board. Coney Ealy is 6'4", 275. You can play him at right end. You can play him at left end. He can anchor versus the run. He's a guy with some pass rush capability, but he reminds me of Justin Tuck a lot in that Like in the Giants' glory years, Justin Tuck, they bumped him inside the defensive tackle on the pass rush. Coney Early had 9.5 sacks last year, and 7 of those sacks came from when he was rushing inside that defensive tackle. So he gives you some diversity when you go to the sub packages and stuff like that. So I think Coney Early will be a good fit for the Bengals.
All right, and at 25, we got the San Diego Chargers, who snuck into the playoffs last season.
Yeah, I mean, surprisingly, they snuck in the playoffs. Phillip Rivers had one of his best years. They got a steal in the third round of the draft. They got a player who was one of my top 10 players in the draft in the third round, and that was Keenan Allen, and he showed why he was one of the top 10 players in last year's draft. People made the mistake of allowing his 40 time, to drop him on boards, and he showed everybody that they were wrong. They need help at cornerback, and the cornerback that I think is probably has the best technique, is the most fluid in his drops, can play zone, can play man, can play slot. And, if he was 6 feet tall, if he was 5'11", if he was 6 feet tall, he would be the first cornerback taken, and it is Jason Verrett from TCU. He reminds me a lot of Antoine Winfield, smaller guy, tough, willing tackler, can play inside and outside. I think Jason Verrett would be a perfect pick for them at 25, and he's going to be a guy that can come in and he can play outside, he'll play inside, wherever you need him to play, he'll play it. And even though he's, barely 5'10", he makes up with it with instincts, and he challenges balls at the high point because he has like a 41-inch vertical leap. So he's the guy that I think will be a perfect fit for them at 25.
Okay, we got Cleveland at 26. Now, this is where it could get interesting because we talked about Cleveland down at 4, maybe taking another position and then coming back at 26 to possibly take a quarterback. You got Cleveland taking a quarterback here, and if so, who is it?
I wouldn't take a quarterback here because I like some of the quarterbacks in the second and third round.
Okay.
Last year they lost DeQuell Jackson, which wasn't a popular decision. DeQuell Jackson was a leader on that team, a guy who had been around for a long time, very productive player. I have them taking C.J. Mosley from the University of Alabama here, a guy with great value at 26, one of my top 15 players in the draft, and he's a guy that can come in that 3-4 defense, or even if they play 4-3. Whatever defense you're going to play, C.J. Mosley is going to fit right in. He's the most scheme-diverse linebacker in this draft. He covers in space and pass coverage the best, and he's a hammer, defensively against the run. I mean, he's one of those guys that's going to be able to come in. He's going to be able to digest the playbook early, and don't be surprised. Whatever team he goes to, if he's the guy calling the signals, from the first preseason game.
All right, and at 27, we have the New Orleans Saints. Put out my Eagles in the playoffs. Where you got the Saints going?
The Saints need help on the offensive line. They need help as far as the outside pass rusher. A guy who, prior to the injury concerns, that came up at the NFL Combine, Cyrus Kouandjio, was a first-round pick. Coming into this year in the college football season, some thought he was a top 10 pick. He was the best tackle in this draft. He struggles with speed at times, the pass rush, but that's only when he's playing high, when he's not, bending at the knee, and when he's not technically sound. When he's technically sound, he's 6'6", 35+ inch arms, and he can play. He can maul you. It's hard to get around the guy because he's, very athletic. I think Cyrus Kouandjio is the pick for them at offensive tackle. I wouldn't be surprised if they took him. If he passes, the question with him is the whole physical thing. Some teams might have took him off the board because of the knee surgery. He had a knee surgery in 2011, and they said, it's arthritic. Some teams didn't pass his physical at the combine. Some teams said he was okay. It all depends on, if the Saints passed his physical.
All right, and at 28, we got Carolina. A lot of people think Cam needs some help on the outside. Are they going to look for a receiver here? Is there a first-round, talent left on the board for them, or are they going to go somewhere else?
I definitely think they need to go receiver, and I know they've had a prior history of drafting USC wide receivers and it's not working out. But Marquise Lee aren't those prior guys. He's actually the second-rated receiver that I got on my board, but I do have him, falling here to the Panthers, and he's a guy that had a tremendous first 2 years of college. His third year, he dealt with some nagging injuries and some inconsistency with his hands, but he's another guy who played in the pro system for 3 years. Very pro-ready, can play inside, can play outside, can run all the routes. Is very tough. His toughness is underrated. He'll block. And I like the work that he did when watching him on film, inside. So if it came across, you could just play this guy anywhere. Very underrated. He ran a 4.51 at the combine, but he's one of those guys that when you watch him in the game and he's running behind guys, that's the true story. He's football fast.
All right, now 29, we got the New England Patriots. We all know, they just made a move in their defensive backfield with Revis Allen. Where do you think they're going to go with the 29th pick?
I think they need to start getting players on the defensive line, that can make an impact. Vincent Wilfork obviously is coming off of the torn Achilles. Him at that age, all those years, there's no telling what he's going to be. Lewis Nix from Notre Dame, I think is a perfect fit for them. They run a 3-4. Nix is obviously a nose tackle. He played that during his 3-year tenure at Notre Dame, and he's not your typical nose tackle. He's a two-gap guy, but he's also a guy who has very good quickness for a guy that's 340 pounds, and he can penetrate and get in the backfield, and he can be a factor, in the passing game along with being a run game. And if you want to go to an either-man front, he's a guy that can play the 1 technique and 3 technique as well. So I would go with Lewis Nix, and I wouldn't be surprised on that day if he isn't the pick for them.
Now, B, I heard some rumors that the Patriots are also looking at receiver. Of course, we know Tom Brady will throw to anybody, but I heard that they're looking at Brandon Cooks. What's your opinion on him as a prospect?
I think Cooks. I gave 8 wide receivers a first-round grade, and it's going to be because of all the players. It's going to be hard for all of them to go in the first round. But Cooks is one of those players that I gave a first-round grade to. Obviously, we've seen the speed that he had. The same speed that we seen the 4.31, 4.33 at the combine was the same thing you see on the field when you watched him at Oregon State. He's a guy, they gave reverses 2 sweeps. He'd take the short pass. And, run with it, get yards after the catch. He's a guy, because of his speed on the outside, that teams were afraid. A lot of corners were afraid to press him. And they wanted to stay off of him because of his speed, because he can run by you. So he was able to catch a lot of, quick comebacks, quick curls, and then make plays after the ball. Now, he did struggle on tape versus athletic, taller corners that weren't afraid of his speed. Shaq Richardson from Arizona did a very good job on him. A guy, number 14 from Oregon, he didn't come out this year, and if he did, he would have been a first-round pick. I can't think of his name right now. Epcrate Alumo, he's an African guy, about 6'2", 200 pounds. He had a lot of trouble against him. A lot of trouble because he was taller, wasn't afraid of him, and, was able to just eat him up and stay with him. He had a very tough game against him. So, his size can be to his detriment, but he's also a guy that, will play inside, can play outside, and, isn't your typical – he kind of reminds me of Steve Smith. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Same body.
I was just asking because I know that how Brady plays. It doesn't matter who's out there, But I also heard that was a rumor. So.
And if you think about it, if you you could play him inside and he can play that Wes Walker role, and he's a better athlete. He's much faster than the slot receivers that Brady has had in the past. He adds an added dimension because of his long speed. Like Welker and Edelman and Amendola were those guys that, they get you 7 here, 8 here, 10 here. Brandon Cooks would take that 7 and go 80 with it.
Right.
Yeah. All right.
No doubt. And at 30, we got the San Francisco 49ers on the clock. Where are the Niners going to go?
I think the 49ers need a wide receiver, and they need a wide receiver who can stretch the field to go along with the bigger physical guys that they got, and I had them taking Brandon Cooks right here. I
Gotcha.
think he'd be a perfect complement to Michael Crabtree and Vernon Davis and the guys that, they drafted Quentin Patton last year. They definitely need a guy who can take the top off of the defense. That's not going to allow defenses to constantly put 8 in the box to stop, Kaepernick and, their running game. Because last year they struggled, being able to pass the ball consistently. And a lot of it was Kaepernick's fault. For a period of time, Vernon Davis was hurt as well. But they need somebody teams just stacked the box against those guys last year and never was afraid of getting beat deep outside of one-on-one matchups with Vernon Davis. And they usually doubled him. Anquan Bolden, love him to death. Anquan Bolden wasn't fast coming into this league, and he ain't damn sure ain't fast now. We seen what happened to him when you put, a guy big enough and fast enough, physical enough to stay with him, you can take him away. They need a guy that can stretch the field and open things up for the offense in the whole, even Kaepernick, for Kaepernick, the running game, and everybody else.
No doubt. And at 31, we know the Denver Broncos had a great regular season and a very, very disappointing Super Bowl. I'm sitting in here with 2 card-carrying members of the Broncos.
Come on, man. Let's just get to the pick. Let's just get to the pick, man.
What are the Broncos going to do at 32?
At 31 for the Broncos.
31, my bad.
Von Miller's coming off an injury. They brought in DeMarcus Ware, maybe got a year or 2 left in him. It's a player that I just got finished watching this film 2 days ago. And actually last year, I thought if he came out last year, he would have been a first-round pick last year. He actually was a better player than Ziggy Ansah, who went, to the Lions last year. And that's Kyle Van Noy, the outside linebacker from BYU. I think he's a man fronts, and they play with, a nose tackle, 2 defensive tackles, and 2 outside linebackers. It's a 4-3 under type of defense. You can play Von Miller, you can play DeMarcus Ware. And I think Kyle Van Noy is a guy with tremendous potential, NFL potential, because of his athleticism, his ability to stack the edge in the run game, and his ability to get to the quarterback. He's a guy that I think would be a good pick for them because I don't know when Von Miller is going to be ready because he got hurt at the end of the season.
Yeah. 2,
you don't know what DeMarcus Ware has left. And be quite frank, we watched what Seattle did to the Broncos. They ran pass rusher among pass rusher at the Broncos. You can never have too many pass rushers in this league. Kyle Van Noy is a guy that I think will be a perfect fit for the Broncos and their defense.
Okay.
All right, and finally, at 32, the world champion Seattle Seahawks. Do you think they're going to go defense, add somebody else to this nasty physical defense? Where do you think they're going?
I think they, have enough defensively right now that they don't have to go defense in the first round. Honestly, if Lewis Nix or, I could possibly see them going with like a Stephon Tuitt from Notre Dame, but I think they need help offensively, and I think Russell Wilson needs more weapons, and I think Kelvin Benjamin would be the perfect fit here as the last pick in the first round for the Seattle Seahawks. Big body receiver, play inside, outside, raw, a 2-year starter. He's just learning, to play this position, and he has all the physical capabilities to be a very good football player. I just think, guys 6'5", 240 pounds, and, you watch him against University of Florida, and Florida has 3 corners that are going to get probably picked in the top 90, 100 picks in this draft, and he took turns abusing all 3 of them, during that game for, 240 yards receiving and 3 touchdowns. He just abused the 3 of them. So this is a guy who's raw, high upside, and with proper coaching and him taking that coaching, he can be a very good football player.
All right, and there you have it, folks, for the first round mock-up.
Absolutely. Biggie, I have one question before we get out of here. Man.
I have one, too.
I just want to know where my man Trey Mason is going to go, man. And it's not that I'm a Trey Mason fan, but I'm a huge De La Soul fan. So subsequently, I'm rooting for Trey Mason, man. Shot the plug 3.
I don't know if you noticed, Jimmy. There were no running backs in that first round, and I haven't seen any running backs.
That's crazy, because I haven't seen him in anybody's mock, including
the league is changing, man. The league is changing.
So it's all about running back by committee. But I'm rooting for Trey Mason, man, just because of the De La Soul connection. B. So where you got him going?
Trey Mason's a good football player. 5'9", 208, 209 pounds. Very good runner, strong lower body. I can see Trey Mason possibly going late second, somewhere in the third round.
Kuwait is the war room with 5 nights at the round table, 5 Philly